Hi guys, this is Mr. Tan, and today we're going to look at the SWOT analysis. And as you may or may not already know, that SWOT analysis stands for the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats of a business. And it's trying to help you to determine what the situation is, to guide you to know what action you should take in terms of your business. So we're going to be looking at SWOT analysis, where it came from, how we can actually apply SWOT analysis, and we're going to be providing an example of SWOT analysis in terms of the hospitality business using Thomas Cook. So let's look at where SWOT analysis came from. SWOT analysis actually came from Albert Humphreys. Now, Albert Humphrey was working at the Stanford Research Institute from the 1960s and 70s, and he worked on the Fortune 500 companies, and he was trying to find out ways to make these companies more efficient and effective in terms of what they were doing. And through his research, his research team produced a method of planning called TAM, which was known as the TAM action model. And through TAM, they actually came up with SOFT. And SOFT was the first model before SWOT. We can see that even though before SWOT was first known as SOFT, and then within the SOFT, the F was changed to W for weaknesses. So during the long-range planning segment, if F in SWOT analysis was replaced by W for weaknesses, and the result was SWOT analysis emerged. So what we know today is SWOT, which came from SOFT, which came from Albert Humphreys, who was working on the Stanford Research Institute in the 60s and 70s, trying to see how to best improve the fortunes of the Fortune 500 companies. How do we actually apply SWOT then? So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So with SWOT, the strength S stands for strengths and W for weaknesses. And the strengths and weaknesses are internal to the business, whereas the opportunities and threats are external to the business. So we can see here that the strengths, these can be positive, tangible, and intangible attributes internal to an organization, and they are within the organization's control. Look at the weaknesses. Again, the weaknesses, these are factors that are within the organization's control that detract from its ability to attain the desired goal. Which areas might the organization improve upon? And this, you might reflect in terms of such principles within the organization that's going to affect the profit and loss account, such as lean, total quality management, continuous improvement. We know that various companies trying to improve and implement these philosophies and models of consumer behavior and a variety of different models to actually make the staff, make the systems more efficient, so that you are maximizing the effectiveness and therefore the profit within the organization. So therefore, if you are maximizing the profit, if you think about the profit and loss account, where you have the sales minus cost of goods sold gives you your gross profit, and then your gross profit minus your expenses in the business gives you your net profit. So if we're saying that your weaknesses may lie either in your cost of goods sold, so you try and get your cost of goods cheaper to increase your gross profit, or you try and make the business more efficient and more effective by improving things within the business. So you may have a weakness in an area, and you may try to improve that area to improve the overall profitability of your profit and loss account. The opportunities again are external, attractive factors that represent the reason for an organization, to exist and develop. What opportunities do you want to develop? What opportunities are out there? Again, another important fact. How many times have we seen businesses throughout the world who don't capitalize on the opportunities? I can remember when Kodak cameras actually first came out with the first digital camera in the 70s. And I actually bought one in the 1990s, which was the DC-50, which actually cost me £1,000 because I could see the benefit of the digital cameras. But Kodak cameras, which were the leading pioneer in terms of film and media, print media, could not capitalize on this, which they had for over 30 years before anyone else. And then everyone else came up with digital films and cameras and sharing and the use of technology, which in essence put Kodak out of business with the loss of billions of pounds and over 2,000 jobs worldwide. So if you've got an opportunity in your business, are you capitalizing it? So we look at these things and we're saying to ourselves, what are these? And these are very, very important points. What are the opportunities? And should you be focusing on them? The threats are external factors beyond an organization's control, which could place the organization's mission or operation at risk. The organization may benefit from having a contingency plan to address them. So, you got to look at the threats. I can remember that my dad was working for Granger telecommunication companies, and Granger were on the stock market listed company, and they were doing very, very well. But they were exporting kind of like their communication systems to other parts of the world. And in one of the countries, I think it was in Serbia, they sent people down to Serbia, and they didn't take into consideration the potential threats. And these people and their employees were, unfortunately, they were kidnapped and they were held for ransom. And even though they were kidnapped, they were held for ransom, and unfortunately they were executed. And this brought down the whole company. And because of this, Granger Telecommunication literally went into free fall, and their whole company collapsed. So, are you really taking the external threats seriously? Are you looking at these threats, and are you building in contingency plans to address them? So, again, another very important area. So, as we said, that when we look at the SWOT analysis, we're looking at the strengths and weaknesses being internal to the business and the opportunities and threats being external to the business. Now, when you're actually doing a SWOT analysis for a business or operation, you don't just write down every weakness, every strength, every threat or opportunity. But what you do is you write that down, the whole list of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then pick out from those the key threats, the key opportunities, the key strengths, and the key weaknesses to your business organization. Look at the SWOT analysis for Thomas Cook. Well, we can see that Thomas Cook had been in business for over 178 years, and they were founded in 1841. When we look at the strengths, we can see it's one of the largest travel companies in the world and the UK. It had a global presence, and services like package holidays, flights, hotels and resorts all combined together. It had an increased brand presence worldwide due to association with the last Olympics, and over 20,000 employees working for the company, 9,000 of which were based in the UK. In terms of its weaknesses, allegedly refusing to pay statutory EU compensation to customers, and intense competition means limited brand presence. But again, competition is going to be, for most sectors, for most industries, quite intense. Opportunities to become the largest travel company in Europe and the UK, to boost their share prices by expanding businesses. Obviously, the share price and dividend payments are very, very important for people wanting to invest into Thomas Cook. To digitalize their operations for better penetration, which we saw with their merger with My Travel. Again, we'll go back into that later. And then the threats or the uncertainty in the airline sector, price wars, which could mean and have an impact on prices and therefore gross profit margins and net profit margins, and increasing liabilities due to unpaid compensations. So we're looking at this and we're saying to ourselves, why did Thomas Cook go into liquidation on the 23rd of September 2019 when it'd been in business for over 178 years? It was turning over 9.6 billion from their hotel and airline and the resorts all combined together. It had 20 million travelers, 21 million people working for the company. So when we look at all these things, we have to ask ourselves the question, do we have the right information in here? Are these the most important points in the SWOT analysis? All too often, people just write a list of points in the SWOT analysis which may not be relevant. You can have 20-30 strengths, 20-30 different weaknesses, and likewise 20 different opportunities and 20 different threats. But the key thing here is not just to write a complete list of all the strengths. If you had to focus on the key strengths, then if you had a list of 20, then you would take the top 5 that was most important to the company. And likewise the top 3 to 5 for weaknesses, and 3 to 5 for opportunities, 3 to 5 for threats. That's going to be crucial to the company, Thomas Cook in this instance. So when we look at the failures, we can see some of the failures included the failure to stay competitive. The marketplace was changing. You had now low-cost airlines. You had Airbnb. You had people being able to book online to book their accommodation, and you had online travel services combined with the budget airlines. People were now making their own holidays rather than buying a package from Thomas Cook, because if you go to your budget airlines and you make your travel services and then you book your own B&B, the total cost was cheaper than buying a complete package from Thomas Cook. And Thomas Cook's business was basically the hotels, airlines and resorts all combined together. So they really failed to be competitive. In addition to that, what about the threats? The threats, uncertainty, it says in the airline sector. Well, we're not really being specific. Terrorism, political unrest, terrorism in Tunisia, political unrest in Turkey. In 2016, one of their top destinations that they had a market for. Again, why wasn't this in here? When we think about, also in terms of the threats, the weakening of the pound due to Brexit, which meant that if the pound is weak, then you get less for your money traveling abroad. Whereas you've got more people now coming in from Europe because the euro is valued more when coming into the UK, so they would get more value for their euro. When we look at even Thomas Cook's debt, their debt was 1.1 billion in 2011, and then all the interest charges that they had to pay on 1.1 billion debt. So that would equate to over 3 million customers of sales in 1 year just to pay off for the interest. And then again with their failed merger with My Travel Group, which the group itself was saddled with debt. The company had only made in 6 years one profit statement, and all the other years they'd made a loss. So why did they merge with My Travel, a company which was saddled with debt, to take on their debt as well? So when we look at these things in terms of SWOT analysis, we must make sure that the key points are actually in the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats that are crucial and relevant to the company, which means that you actually need to do more research. You need to do more research, and you need to pick out the key things that's relevant to this company or your company or country that you're looking at. When you are doing your SWOT analysis, it is extremely important to reference an in-text reference where you get your information from. So, in the previous slides, and when you go on to Google or you go into a company analysis, SWOT analysis of a company or an area or region, then you're going to come up with bullet points. But really, you need to look at these and go into more detail and to do more research in it, and to make sure that when you're doing your SWOT analysis, as well as doing additional research, is to provide in-text referencing. and to provide your in-text referencing according to the appropriate style. The style used here is Harvard reference in-text referencing. Obviously for Coventry you'll be using APA, so you use the appropriate in-text referencing, and it's important. Otherwise, where do we know where the information's come from? And when you're using the information and looking at the information, try and be as specific as possible. Don't be general. When we look at the threats, uncertainty in the airline sector, well, what do we mean by that? Uncertainty in what area and where? Now you could be thinking that a lot of this work sometimes requires a word limit. It might be 1,500, 2,500, 3,000, and you might say, well, to do all this research and put this additional information in, when you can summarize the information within your work, might be too much, and then you're going over the word limit, because I've heard this many times before. But you can do the research and then put the research and the information that you have in your appendix, and that way it's not counted towards your word count. But it is very, very important that you do more research to determine the specifics of the information that you're talking about, and then to ensure that you choose the key strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and to make sure that you in-text reference so we know where you've actually got this information from, and then to ensure that you summarize this in 2 or 3 paragraphs in terms of the SWOT analysis, because later on you will summarize that, you would interlink that information with the rest of your work. Okay. We would like you to do a little bit more homework, to review a few more videos on the SWOT analysis, and we're going to be using some augmented technology so in the slides for online learning, because this is the way that learning is going. So if you can all please download the ZapWorks app, so the Zapper app, either for your mobile on Google Play, or if you have an Apple device, then or Apple Store. So once you have the Zapper app downloaded on your desktop or your mobile, this will then allow you to open up the Zapper app, put it in front of the barcode you can see in front of you, and then additional links will lead you to where we would like you to go to watch additional videos, which will come up if you have your phone, for example, will come up on your phone and you will see it there. In fact, you will see a contents page with all the different models: Swot, Pestel, Porter's Diamond model, and so on and so forth. And then when you click on those links, those will lead you to other additional information that we would like you to look at before you start your own SWOT analysis. So thank you for that. We covered today. Well, we reviewed the origins of SWOT, being, from Albert Humphreys, from the Stanford Institute in the 1960s and 70s, where he developed the TAM model, and it was originally called SOFT, where the F was for faults and was changed to weaknesses, hence SWOT, SWOT. And we know that the strengths and weaknesses are internal to the business and the opportunities and threats are external to the business. We reviewed the purpose of SWOT in terms of gaining a picture of what's happening, and we also discussed that this is not just the only model that you use to gain a picture of the situation in terms of your situational analysis, which then allows you to develop your marketing strategy. So your situational analysis would include other models like Pestel and Porter's, which we will be showing to you. We used Thomas Cook as an example of looking at the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats that had been already published by many other companies out there in the industry. And we reviewed each of these in terms of the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats. And we saw that maybe, not all the relevant strengths, opportunities, weaknesses and threats were actually in the model that probably should have been in the model, because you can come up with loads and loads of lists, but the key thing is, what are the key important strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats? What are the top? Anyone can create a list, but what are the key things that's going to have a major impact on the business? We reviewed how to complete a SWOT analysis in terms of the main ones, and also in terms of reviewing and incorporating in-text referencing for your work, because even though you see many SWOT analysis, but when you come to using a SWOT analysis, we really want to see in-text referencing, and obviously a reference list for that as well, and a summary of your SWOT analysis in 2 or 3 paragraphs in terms of what you see are the key things. Because what a lot of people do is they don't interlink the SWOT or situation analysis with the other models that you use with the rest of your work, and you need to interlink this with the rest of your work depending upon what the assignment brief is all about or report. So very, very important to make sure that you do additional in-depth research onto these key elements, because that will shape the rest of your assignment. And then we've asked you to download ZapWorks. So ZapWorks allows us to use and provide you with additional information, additional homework with augmented reality incorporated with the barcode already provided on here. And then you will click on SWOT, and then you will see other videos that we would like you to watch, which will give you more information as well in terms of what we've discussed in terms of other examples, and then that will allow you then to start your own SWOT analysis. I hope today has helped. Thank you. Today from Mr. Tan.